King of Diamonds, King of Hearts. King of Diamonds, King of Hearts was released on the first Thursday in March. The media company responsible for the worldwide release had done its best to control the hysteria which now surrounded this movie due to the sudden death of its writer and director. On the one hand, the extra focus on the Diamond family in the week prior to the launch was like manna from heaven for the promoters. The hype that had built all by itself was quite enough to ensure massive box office success. On the other hand, however, the many schedules for a whirlwind tour of the stars and production team, which had been planned so carefully in advance, had since been thrown into disarray. After the opening in Melbourne, Jeff and Lynn had been scheduled to fly to Sydney, Singapore, Tokyo, various European capitals, and ending up with New York and Los Angeles. In each city, there were to have been premieres and parties and after-parties interspersed with press conferences and numerous television and radio appearances. All in all, about 200 hours of events had now been left with no guests of honor. The film's handsome protagonist felt terrible for pulling out and canvassed everyone he could think of for some alternate ideas with which he might make amends. There was simply no way he could fly solo around the world, spending hours parading along red carpets and talking about a movie which his dead wife had made about him. It was wrong on so many levels, and to his relief, most people agreed. Fortunately for the film executives, the lead actors were more than happy to help fill the void the Diamonds had left, out of respect for the dearly departed director. "Are you at least going to watch it?" Kearney pleaded with her father as they ran round the streets of Carlton on the morning of the Melbourne opening night. "I can't, baby. How can I say I'm not joining the circus, then turn up for my free glass of champagne?" Jeff objected. "That's ridiculous," his daughter chided. "Everyone would love you to turn up, and we'd make sure you stayed in the dark. People will expect you to be there. Mama made this film for you. Everyone knows that." The widower stopped, bending over with his hands on his knees, catching his breath. He was losing fitness rapidly, with his lifestyle now far less healthy than it used to be. He was also frustrated because Kearney was right. Shane Adams' single from the soundtrack had gone straight to #1 in many countries, and perversely, its frequent spots on the radio were helping to promote Lynn's existence somewhat. "Damn you, Pequeñita," he cursed with a half-smile. "You're my voice of reason now. I know I should go, but can you imagine what I'm going to be like? They'll have to put plastic sheeting over the carpet." The 17-year-old giggled. "You sound like a puppy who needs house training. Please, Papa. Martin Day will be there and Tom Bingham. They're going to want you to be there. You are King of Diamonds, King of Hearts to them." "Ugh," Jeff groaned, impersonating his dream girl and throwing his hands in the air. "All right then, I'll do it. Yippee, another trip to Crown in my penguin suit. I hope you'll be there." "Papa," Kearney exclaimed, bumping into him deliberately, "of course I'll be there. I'm dying to see it. I've seen snippets in the rushes already, and I basically know the story, but I'm so looking forward to seeing the whole thing. Apparently the woman who plays your mama is completely stunning." "Like you, baby," her father sighed, stopping again and reaching towards his daughter for a hug. "Like you. Mama told me. So far I don't like my chances of getting through it, but I'll do my best for you and Mama." The teenager kissed his chin. "Gracias. One more favor." "Uh-oh," her father smiled, suspecting a catch. "What's that?" "I'd like for us to invite Messieurs Day and Bingham for dinner afterwards, just somewhere private. One of those tiny restaurants on Little Collins, up the Harry's Bar end." "The Paris end." Jeff gave the district its new fashionable nickname, feeling the blood drain out of his head. "You are scarily like your mother, you know." The young woman watched her father try his best to come to terms with her idea. "No, I'm not, Papa," she assured him. "The request was in our letters." The 43-year-old lurched toward the nearest tree and crouched down next to its sturdy trunk, feeling particularly dizzy and unable to speak. Kearney sat down on a patch of grass opposite, in the shade of an old oak, and stood her ground while he processed this latest piece of Lynn's puzzle. "When am I ever going to get control of my life back?" Jeff lamented, half joking, but only half. Don't you think it's a good idea? His daughter asked. Especially as it's la premiere. I wonder if those two have even been to Melbourne before. Yes, he snapped to attention, standing up and shaking his aching legs out in an effort to keep his muscles warm. Yes. Okay, it's a good idea, Angels. Anything you say. Life goes on, kizzo. The pair walked the rest of the way back to the apartment hand in hand. Kearney changed the subject and talked about a project in which she planned to involve herself in place of her course at Sydney University. According to an associate professor, the multi-faculty initiative was intended to be run out of Melbourne University and would give her credits toward her chosen bachelor's degree. Jeff listened to the 17-year-old's enthusiastic chatter, and it calmed his wild thoughts. You can have control of your life back whenever you want, Papa, Kearney declared after a while, noticing the man beside her had gone very quiet. Her father's pace quickened as they closed in on the city, the famous pair beginning to engender more and more interest from people supposed to be going about their business. He had a look of impending doom about him, and the youngster lengthened her stride to keep up. After 5 minutes or so, they reached the glass front doors of their apartment building. Several Asian students were hanging around in the lobby, waiting for their friends, and they turned and gaped as their penthouse neighbors let themselves in. Hi, the cheerful young woman gave them a wave as the lift opened. Once inside the apartment, she watched her unusually taciturn father disappear straight into the spare bedroom and shut the door. What had happened? She had no idea whether their conversation had triggered positive or negative thoughts, since no words had been spoken for a good 10 minutes. He needed space, Kearney figured. She decided to wait for an hour, and then, if her dad hadn't reappeared, she would try knocking on his door. This hour was made up of the longest 60 minutes the gypsy girl could remember for quite a while. She logged on to one of the computers in the office and began checking emails. There was a funny message from Jet, who had returned to Cambridge the previous week. He had discovered a series of cartoons on a website, and every now and again he would send one he found amusing. His sister typed a serious reply telling him what had happened. It was the middle of the night over in the UK, and she and Jeff would be at the cinema by the time the student would have retrieved his messages, so she deleted it without sending. If the problem hadn't been resolved by then, she would ring him for advice. At least writing the situation down in a way that would ensure he understood it had helped clarify it in her own mind, which action she should take. Walking up to her father's closed door with 2 mugs of coffee, Kearney knocked. Papa, please can I come in? Are you awake? Si, pequeñita, come in. Cheered by his ready response, Kearney nudged down the door handle with her elbow and carried their drinks into the room. For the first time after her mother's passing, she found the bed unmade and its occupant stretched out on the sheet, dressed in nothing but a pair of boxer shorts. His hair was still wet from the shower, and a pile of sports clothing had been dumped on the floor. Recently, she had become so used to finding him reading or simply staring at the ceiling, on top of undisturbed bedclothes and usually dressed from head to toe in black, and this wholly commonplace sight warmed her heart. Wow, she exclaimed. You're making the room bright today. Es muy bueno. On closer inspection, the scene wasn't quite so promising after all. Having not seen her papa's upper body naked since the weekend at Ben Locke after the funeral, the teenager noticed how thin he was. She could see his ribs clearly. His biceps and triceps had lost their former substance and definition, and there seemed to be a cavern of empty skin under his diaphragm, where abdominal muscles had previously rippled. Hoping her eyes didn't betray this new disappointment, Kearney chose not to mention her latest observation, putting the mug down on the bedside table. She resolved to whip up a big, hearty pasta meal for them the following evening, in the hope that he wouldn't be able to resist his favorite dish. Gracias. How are you, gorgeous? Sorry I disappeared without saying anything. That's okay, she lied. I told myself I'd give you an hour and then interfere some more. Jeff laughed. Good plan. Are you going to answer my question? How am I? The young woman repeated. Worried. It's not like you keep things to yourself. I wrote Jed a long email and then deleted it because there's nothing he can do from over there. And by the time he reads it, the story will have moved on, so I decided to move the story on myself instead.